death come to him faster. Renato saved at the moment. And then, too quick, it was over. He stood over the dead emperor.
Death to tyranny! He shouted. Go, House, go!
Zenobia stepped out of the shadows. You have to stop, she said. You've killed everyone. Our ravens, your rebels. You murdered the whole rebel council.
What?
Oh, the ravens killed the council.
You big idiot. They don't even know what the secret base is.
Shouted Lapino, who was with her for some reason. Look at the stone, said Zenobia. It was black as night. Blacker.
But I fed it the core, said Renato. It was glowing.
Well,
who needs the core? He said, and he attacked.
Zenobia conjured her best, and Lapino hopped around like a mad rabbit, but he killed them both easily.
I am unstoppable, he orated at the blood-soaked walls. I alone shall be emperor.
The tiny voice inside him screamed. That doesn't even sound like you big fanny. The stone has stolen your mind. But he ignored it. Who listens to voices in their heads anyway? Madmen, that's who. And just like that, he was alive again. And back on the Farfarer, still fleeing burning Ubar. The book still open before him. So, the book was a portal. It took you to the future, when your destinies would branch. He had failed and died 3 times, but he'd learned another true thing. The Iblis Stone was evil. It would try to corrupt anyone who used it. But he was starting to feel like he was getting the hang of this. There was a way through to victory. He could feel it. He just had to keep running the path of destinies. With that, the book fluttered back to the beginning, and he fell into it. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Granada knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong. But he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Iblis Stone was hidden there. It was a dangerous artifact. It could corrupt its user into a bloodthirsty monster. Maybe he could find a way to use it, to take its power without surrendering to its wickedness. On the other hand, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Lapino was no game changer, but could Renato really leave an old friend to the Ravens? Lapino. Apparently, the Mad Rabbit had sold a Pegasus that he did not exactly own. Lapino always wiggled out of trouble, given time. But he was out of time. The Ravens had figured out that Lapino was a rebel spy. If the fleet reached him first, they'd string him up for that. Never mind the winged horse. Lapino had apparently managed to confuse the judge by arguing that he hadn't actually stolen a winged horse. He'd only sold it. But wait, where was the prison? The village was empty. Had everybody fled the ravens?
Hey, a workbench.
He could try out his new bling. This chest made music when you opened it. Too bad it was Muzak. People were frightened these days. Just 2 weeks past, Reynardo had sneaked through an empty town and listened to the ravens caw about the Emperor's new taste in ritual sacrifice. Reynardo had tried everything. Zenobia had loved him to death. Skyver destroyed everything. The Iblis Stone had corrupted everyone who held it. He'd never put much faith in Lapino. But Lapino was all he had left.
Snack time, boys! Called the lead raven.
Fuck. Shit.
Sometimes, Reynardo really hated inanimate objects.
With materials like this, he could probably make a really nice pair of barbecue tongs. Or even a sword. Ravens were landing everywhere. The advance guard. He'd better get moving. If they got to Lupino first, they'd eat him for breakfast. Or a snack. Ravens weren't picky. If they got hungry, they sometimes forgot to interrogate their prisoners. Even top spies like Lupino. Where had the mad rabbit got to?
تهزي يا مخدة. ها؟ انت هزيتي يا ما كتكذب. وراه انت هزيتي يا مخدة. نقول انا فين مشات.
Nice. That could be useful. The right jewel could really give you an edge. The wrong, well, it still looked pretty, didn't it?
Lupino! Found you.
Dirty and bloody, Renato finally reached Lupino. The rabbit was practicing his shuffle. Renato recognized the cards. It was Lupino's favorite deck. Oh, I thought you were in danger.
I am! The Ravens are coming. Oh, the prison thing. Right, yeah, we see this guard owed me 53 ducats, so we made a deal. They're very reasonable people, actually, for weasels. Now, I got a brilliant plan to kidnap Zenobia. We capture Zenobia, we find out what she knows, and that's the whole war right there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Capture the
Easy
Emperor's greatest
peasy,
general,
lemon
Who happened to also
squeezy.
be a deadly sorcerer, and, oh, his only daughter? That would be worth it. And it would be nice to see her.
Business?
He always had a soft spot
Huh?
for her. And
Masz
he felt sure she had one for him. On the other hand, he could still get to the core of the Sky River, even if he couldn't get the whole thing. It must have great power.
هذا العزة في احنا مش نلعب خوف العليا
To make the Sky Ripper, the Transcendent Emperor had wrapped an armature around the eye of a god. Bernardo had already let that armature slip away to save Lupino's life. But even its core, the eye torn from a god, surely they could fashion a great weapon from that.
The core of the Sky Ripper? Lupino's excited. That's an actual thing that we could just go and get. You've been busy.
He sure had. Bernardo told him all the things he'd been up to. Soon they got to talking about old times, about wages they'd won and lost, and scrapes they'd barely got out of. It was good to be back with his friend. True, the core was capable of terrible, uncontrollable destruction. But this time, he was sure it would work great. It's beautiful here, thought Bernardo. He was thrilled to be back with his old war buddy. He'd missed the mad rabbit, but something was not quite right.
Hey, I'm a firefox,
Thought Bernardo. Don't look down, he thought. What's behind door number 2?
This stone was incredibly valuable. Renato could sense it. Also, it still had its price tag. Sword from the east made you so fast you could catch a fly with your tongue. That was the big one. Think of all the artisans he was creating employment for. Truly, he was a job creator. There was something sour in the air. Like the earth had ruptured over something that had been fermenting for a very long time. You almost never saw wild gogglers together like this. The toads had to train them not to peck each other to death. These had to be imperial gogglers. Renato felt wrong all over. He could feel an almost palpable sickness in the air. And if the land could have tumors, they would look like these monstrous crystals. The forest was quieter than it had been. There were insects, but few birds, if you didn't count the ravens. Renato smelled sick animals and dying ones, but no healthy ones. And getting a bad feeling about this, Renato thought. Maybe Lapina was right. Maybe they should have kidnapped Zenobia instead of coming here. The thing about puzzles was, once you solved one, you knew how to solve it again. Puzzles had no, what was the word? Replayability? Renato wondered if you could design a puzzle that would be different every time you played with it. Wouldn't that be fun?
As he held the radiant icosahedron, Bernardo felt queasy, like dozens of tiny worms were nibbling his insides. It wasn't healthy to be so close to the eye of a god. How could he use it? He could take it to the observatory. The scientists there could tell him how to harness its ancient power. But honestly, Bernardo ached to get away from it. He brought the core back with him to the Farfarer. But honestly, Bernardo ached to be rid of it.
Tell you what, said Lupino. I'll take it to the observatory. You attack the Imperial outpost.
The Imperial outpost was a vital communications node. Taking it could shatter the Empire's ability to coordinate. And it would be full of secret plans and maps and maybe even rebel prisoners. It was a good target for a hero like Bernardo. But what if Lupino lost the core to the Empire? That could be a good thing, couldn't it? Was Bernardo ready to take that risk? Maybe it was better if he brought the core to the scientists himself. Trust me, Bernardo, you won't regret this. I'll treat the core like it was my own baby daughter. As the Farfarer dived towards the Nexus, Lupino was jumping up and down with excitement. Stop rabbiting around, Bernardo said. Lupino just stared at him. The moment the ship landed, Lupino leapt off the ship. As Lupino vanished into the wilds of the Nexus, Bernardo vaguely remembered Lupino had a baby daughter, didn't he? And he told her mother he was going out to get some Easter eggs, and he'd never come back. But Bernardo was relieved not to carry the core anymore. He was already feeling better. And who knows, maybe this time Lupino would get it right. And if Bernardo could take the outpost, he'd have access to all the Empire's communications in this sector. Right? He was practically sure he'd find something useful in one of these things. Or I could go that way, he thought.
His chest was filled with old concert T-shirts. And something useful. Renato caught his breath. His joints still hurt, but he couldn't feel the poison in his system anymore. He'd let the armature slip out of his hands to save his friend Lapino. Of course he had to let Lapino take the core. The rebellion needed every man doing his duty. And the rabbit would be no good taking on an Imperial outpost, right? There was an inscription. Praised the sun. Renato took the outpost with a song in his heart. Soon, he was stuffing his sack with key messages from and to the fleet. Then the far speaker toad chortled a new message. The observatory had been sacked by rebels. He and all the scientists had been taken to the mountains. Why? Why had he trusted Lapino again? And now the Empire had the core. Renato hailed the rebel base to warn them. But their far speaker didn't quote back. Was the base under attack too? Who knew what was going on at the base? But he knew what the Ravens would do to Lapino if Renato didn't rescue him fast. What are old friends for, if not to need rescuing every few days? Renato felt a twinge of doubt. Should he have gone to the base? No. Logically, wherever they'd taken Lapino was probably where they took the core, right? Oh, why couldn't Lapino have just, for once, not got himself captured? Was that too much to ask? He shouldn't be too hard on the rabbit. No, he meant well, and he was insanely brave. You had to admire that.
He felt like Tarzan.
There were stickers all over the platform for really hot lady bosses, with pictures, addresses and everything. Where were they holding Lapino anyway? There was no sign of him or the ravens who'd captured him. Just rocks and snow and the usual scouts. No sign of the Corps either. It was just a wild rabbit chase. Oh, trust Lapino to screw up even getting captured. But what was this rebellion for anyway? Well, Lapino was a useless goof. But he was a friend. If friends didn't matter anymore, what was the point of winning this war?
Hey, want to hook up?
Smashing things was fun. With all this ore, Renato could forge a really great sword. He was a master forger. That probably wasn't the right word. Now you're foxed.
Dobra. Nad stołem dzień.
There was a pleasant breeze coming through that door. Had it been closed before?
Fuck. Вот он стал вампиром.
Wow, that was good. Was it good for you?
Да. Ты где решает?
This chest contained blank passports from 15 countries. And something useful. Bernardo thought of the choices he had made so far. Rescuing a friend and then sending him to be captured. Recovering a super weapon and letting it fall into enemy hands. Risking an assault on an enemy base for military secrets. And then failing to deliver them to the rebellion. Well, he was alive, at least.
تروح اللعبة ثانية شتي What the fuck?
Have you ever felt you were just going round in circles? Bernardo felt like that. At the end of the mountain path, Bernardo came to a clearing. There was a campfire, raven feathers, and... oh... Lupino's lucky deck of cards. Well, that wasn't good. Renato hoped Lupino would not try to cheat his captors at cards. Ravens were much better than weasels at counting, and they had a very poor sense of humor. Then, he saw what he had hoped never to see. Fresh scraps of rabbit fur. Ragged and bloody, ravens would eat anything.
By Crabthar's hammer!
Bernardo screamed at the sky.
I will avenge you!
The rebels had assembled their fleet. Ahead,
clouds were dark with Imperial ships. If he could reach the Emperor before the rest of the rebels did, maybe he could settle this without too much bloodshed. He set sail, and the Farfarer shot forward. Poor Lapino had never been a great warrior. The Mad Rabbit was good for a lark and a laugh. And a pint. The thought of ravens eating him made Renato furious. The way they were eating up the land. The way the Emperor was eating up the people with his new, bloodthirsty ways. He would make them all pay. Now he could slice the wings off a fly in the air. Not that he would. It's sort of mean, really. The road less traveled, thought Renato. How intriguing. Magical jewel. Bernardo couldn't wait to find a workbench. He had given up every objective to save his friend. He had given up the armature, the core, the gem, and even Zenobia. He loved Lapino, he realized. Now the rabbit was gone. A hero looks out for his friends, even when they're gone. He would send Lapino an honor guard of ravens to serve him in the halls of the Valiant. He would avenge him. Bernardo wondered idly if people who had built these poles had really, really long tentacles. A very clever engineer named Elon Muskrat got his start making floating platforms. Not many people knew Finally, he reached the Emperor's ship.
And there was Lapino.
Surrounded by ravens.
He was alive. They'd eaten some other rabbit. I'll save you! He shouted with joy and flung himself at the ravens.
Oh, you shouldn't have, said Lapino when the last raven was down. Renato threw his arms around his best friend. I had to come. I love you, man. You really, really shouldn't have, said Lapino. And Renato felt a rather sharp pain in his back. As he collapsed, Lapino took the dagger out of Renato's back and wiped it off on Renato's sleeve.
What the fuck?
Why? You always have to be the hero. Brave Renato, epic Renato, super sexy Renato. Now I'm sick of it. But I love you.
قول لي كلمة ده.
And you thought I was the idiot, said Lapino as Renato died.
Fuck yeah.
Oh, damn it. He lost again and died. But there was burning Ubar behind him. He still had all his destinies ahead of him. But he'd learned another true thing. Lapino was a traitor. Renato had suspected there was something wrong with the mad rabbit. But now he knew there was malice behind his goofiness. He knew enough now, he thought. All these truths tumbling around each other in his head. There must be a way to puzzle the pieces together. If he used everything he knew, he could discover a new path to destiny. The book's pages fluttered to the beginning once again. Faster than before? And he fell. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Renato knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong. But he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Iblis stone was hidden there. It was a dangerous artifact. It could corrupt its user into a bloodthirsty monster. Maybe he could find a way to use it, to take its power without surrendering to its wickedness. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion, and he had a gut feeling that he needed to use that to his advantage.